Hello and happy Friday, and thanks for spending your Friday evening here at radiofreerhinecliff.org on your FM dial. Is it FM or AM? I'm not sure. This is Correct Me If I'm Norm. I'm your host, Norm, and my guest here tonight is the wonderful John Halpern. I've been smiling all day looking forward to having John here. John, welcome.
Good to see you, Norm. I mean, I feel like I'm on hollow ground here. There's so many. I'm a regular listener to your show, and there's so many amazing people around here. I'm very humbled that I was allowed into front of the golden mic.
The golden mic. Well, thanks for being a regular listener. If you listen one more time, you get the card checked, and you get a free coffee here.
Oh, I'm going to shoot for it
at the Epicurean, who's hosting us here in the Nook. The fabulous Epicurean. I know. A nice plugs segue. So, what's your deal? What do you do? Why are you interesting? I know, what a horrible question.
I'm a photographer. I've been a photographer since I got out of college many, many years ago. I've been doing it now for 45 years as a commercial photographer.
Did you shoot before college? When did you start having an interest in photography?
In high school, I won a couple of the art awards at the high school, but my thing back then was pottery. I was really into pottery. I was a serious potter in high school. My mom, for whatever reason, bought me a potter's wheel for my 13th birthday. Because in 7th grade, when I was introduced to the potter's wheel, I started skipping classes to throw pots with the encouragement of Carl Bergman, the old hippie art teacher at Robert E. Bell School.
Where's Robert E. Bell School?
In Chappaqua, New York.
Oh, Chappaqua.
It had been recently discovered in those years. It was the late 1800s, Norm.
Oh, right. I must have done the math wrong. I figured that was the 70s. Wow. So do you still do any of that?
I don't, but it's one of those things that I would love to get back to at some point, because I was very serious with my pottery.
Right.
I actually taught the adult ed classes in my district. The teacher,
as a kid,
as a high school kid, Glenn Swain was my art teacher, and Glenn was good with ceramics, but I was really good with the potter's wheel. So I would go in and teach the adult ed classes. And the funny thing is, when I think back those years, I used to break into school on weekends and evenings to do my work, my potter's work. The high school there was a one-story layout, and the art room had an air conditioner that kind of jutted out from the window. And I found out that if I lifted it with my knee and had a stick in my other hand, it made a gap in the window, and I could push up the latch on the window, and I would then shuttle in a box of my greenware, my pottery that I had thrown at home, and I would then go in and get to work and fire the kiln, because I didn't want to share the kiln with anyone else, because those pots always blow up, and I didn't want them to work, mess up my beautiful work. So I'll just cut to the chase and say I was known amongst the local police department.
Did you ever get busted for that?
I did. Basically, a cop car would pull up, and I have the lights on, and I'm just
propping up the window.
No, I was already in. I was busy at work, and I didn't even notice the cop car would pull up, and the guy would come with a flashlight. What the hell are you doing here? And I said, I'm working. And he could see that I wasn't breaking anything. I was working. And he goes, I think you should get out of here.
Right.
And my game with that ended later that year on a Sunday. I went in with more pottery to fire, and I looked left and right, and I raised the thing with the air conditioner with my knee, and I stuck the prong up. I climbed in, and as I climbed in, my teacher, Mr. Swain, was sitting with his feet propped up on his desk, and he used to smoke a pipe. And he pulled the pipe out, and he goes, so that's how you do it. I've heard about this. And he goes, John, I love you, but I think you should go home now.
Oh, really?
So when I got out to college, the only way I got into college was with my pottery portfolio. It wasn't my verbal SAT scores. But the thing is about the verbal SAT scores, I did end up going to a little teeny tiny school in your neck of the woods in Ohio, Kenyon College.
Oh, yeah.
Which is known for its English department.
Yes.
And
the Kenyon Review.
The Kenyon Review, E.L. Doctorow, Laura Hilbrand. The list goes on with great writers. And at that point, this was my mother's plan. I didn't have the verbal SAT scores to get into Williams or Amherst.
Do you remember what the number was?
I'm not going to divulge that because it's too embarrassing.
Really? Wow.
What is the number? If you sign your name, I think you get a certain. I think I got 1 or 2 points above the signing the name point. I have always struggled with writing and verbal things and all that. So anyway, but they had an anthro program which also has archaeology, and I thought pottery. I didn't, even though I won various awards and I was known in school as like an art guy.
Right.
I never drew or painted. That was art, so I didn't think I was worthy of RISD or Maryland School of Art. So liberal arts, straight arrow.
Good place, Kenyon.
It was a good place until I got to the English department, and then things turned ugly quickly.
Well, that was not where you were meant to be. Clearly,
it was not. But I have been writing recently, so it is kind of funny that
I've read your writing and preparing for this. I read a whole bunch of stuff that you wrote on Facebook, and it's all really good.
Yes, my Facebook memoir.
Yeah, it's really nice. But the writing is good. And I wonder if maybe when you were younger you had some mild dyslexia or something.
I think it was beyond mild. Actually, my brothers both have visual writing. Something is not quite right up there. Lord knows.
You see that changing as you get older and less?
I am amused at myself that I've kind of been intrigued by the writing thing because it was always so difficult. I'm a terrible, terrible speller. And I every word I have to look up. But I enjoy telling my stories, but now writing down, it's kind of a new thing. My father wanted to be a writer, and through marriage and a family and all that, and family connections, he ended up working on Wall Street. But that was his heart, and that's where his heart was. But my brother Joe is a very fine writer.
Wow.
So he's like a journalist type up in Boston.
Did he similarly struggle?
He struggled in a very serious way. They wanted, as soon as we moved into the new Chappaqua School District from New Rochelle, they wanted to immediately send him back. And I have to hand it to Joe. He went off to Ithaca College, and all of a sudden he just blossomed and he became a writer.
It's an interesting thing for somebody who would struggle in that realm to sort of move towards.
He went back into it, and
I'm going to seek that out as a career.
And here I am in my later years, kind of doing the same thing. And I don't know why.
Well, good. So were you writing stuff other than what I'm reading on Facebook?
No. The Facebook is my memoir. So I put out every other month another thing to share with the masses, my 30 friends on Facebook.
But you get a ton of positive feedback from
people are very sweet. Like, John, you should write. And it's like that would be my next brilliant career, being a writer. To talk about stories that happened 30 years ago, people are clamoring for that.
Yeah. So the pottery, and I love pottery. I know a bunch of potters. I just totally respect that whole craft. You had this passion for that,
right?
And at some point, that drove you to break in to do it. At some point, that sort of faded away. And was that about the time you became interested in photography? Yeah,
there is a very smooth segue from there. That I went to Kenya being an anthro, thinking I was going to be an anthro major. And my first semester, I took physical anthropology. And all I remember...
What is that?
This is the problem, Norm. I didn't do very well in it. All I remember is that... Yeah, exactly.
There'll be a grade at the end of this.
It's not going to be a good one. The teacher came out with a burlap sack and dumped a dusty bag of bones on the table, and somehow we were supposed to identify what they were and where they came from. And I'm in this class with, pre-med kids, and they're like, I'm looking around, and they're writing things down, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. By the winter of that first semester, I knew I was not going to be an anthro major. So what happened, and my struggles continued the rest of my freshman year, including English. I had to take English 101, and I was taking the task with those. So to lighten my load, my sophomore year, I took a Photo 101 course. Like, maybe I could get through this easily. And I was playing basketball for the team, and they were threatening to throw me off the team and all that stuff. I wanted to stay on the team. I was not a great player. I was at the end of the bench, but I was an enthusiastic teammate.
Right.
So the fall of my sophomore year, I took this Photo 101 class, and about 2 weeks into the class, Professor Gold, God bless him, he said, Mr. Halpern, can I see you after class? And I'm thinking, oh, shit, here we go. Like, I can't even pass the goddamn 101 photo class. And he said that conversation altered the course of my life. He said, I think you should, I've been looking at your work, you should be an art major. What are you majoring in? I said, well, I was thinking of anthro, but that's not working out. And
I just got goosebumps. That's so beautiful.
It's an amazing thing. And as I went back to my room, I don't know how this is going to fly with my folks.
Right.
The deal that I had with my parents in the mid-'70s, before the internet, was that I was required to write one letter home a week. And my mother wrote wonderful letters, and each Tuesday a letter would come in with Mom's handwriting on it, and she had a beautiful letter of what was going on back at the home. And on Wednesday, I would struggle to write out something about what had gone on that past week. But that was the rule. So after this, the Professor Gold saying I should be an art major, I went back to my room. I have to write a letter. Dear Mom and Dad, I'm going to be an art major. How about that?
Yeah. Parents are super enthusiastic about that choice.
So I wrote the letter, put the stamp on it, put it in the mailbox, and I was like, okay, I don't know how this is going to fly. So the following Tuesday, a letter came in, and it had my dad's handwriting on it. I was like, oh, boy. And I went to the far corners of the fields where Kenya was situated. I opened up, and it was... My father wrote me one of the most beautiful letters. Excuse me if I start crying. He said, I always knew you were an artist, and I want you to follow your passion. I didn't exactly do that, but I want you to do it.
Oh, my God.
And I know it's in you. You should do this. It's an amazing... So there you go. There you go.
And what was your dad's line?
Well, my dad wanted to be a writer, and after World War II... he got back from the war, and his father had just passed away. And he took over the family business of office cleaning.
Nice.
That was the business. And then in the evening on the GI Bill, he took journalism classes at Columbia.
Wow.
So we've always said Dad went to Columbia, but it was just nighttime stuff.
Still.
Meanwhile, I have to say my father was one of the brightest, most well-read guys I've ever met. He was really,
and
I think,
evidently a really wonderful, lovely father.
Both my parents went above and beyond. And now my dad passed away 5 years ago. My mother, I still like, what the hell were you thinking? Why didn't you make me go and get a normal? I should have been selling insurance or something. But
now here you are, 45 years of doing this,
and I'm in front of the Golden Mic with Norm talking about my brilliant career.
I'm sorry, that's the golden ring that you came upon. But you've been doing it for a long time, and you're getting by, evidently.
Every year, it's at that time of year where it's like, oh my God, I did it again. And I am a commercial photographer. I've had more than my share of lucky breaks over the years, but it's still, I think, kind of amazing. My wife, Liz, is a textile designer. I'm a
gorgeous
commercial
stuff. Beautiful work.
Anyone who knows us knows that the talent's with her.
Uh-huh.
But we get by each year. It's at the end of the year. Wow, we made it through another year. It's going to be okay. And especially these past 2 years, it's just incredible.
Yeah, that's amazing. So back to the transference of passion,
yes,
if you will, from the pottery, which really seems like you were totally devoted to somehow it moved. Was it the professor and your dad's encouragement, and
right.
you thought, oh, I'm going to be an artist photographer?
Right, and that's Kenyon. It was not commercial in any way. It was fine art, and I became a fine art major, but Kenyon is situated in the middle of nowhere, Ohio. It's tiny. It's like around here, Bard. There were only 1,400 students there, and we were surrounded by this. It's a physically beautiful campus, one of the most beautiful in the country. It looks like an old English stone, Gothic type place, and I wanted to. But it was also I grew up in Westchester, where you stand, there's an oak tree in your way. And I had never been to the Midwest before. And when you're in Ohio, there's those places, Norm, that I'm sure you're familiar with, like near Dayton. You look 10 miles in that direction, you could see 10 miles. You face the other way, you could see 15 miles. And it's like that north by northwest. The roads just go out into the horizon.
It's crazy.
And as a kid coming from this neck of the woods, there's this power in that I want to capture as a photographer. And so my sophomore year I started Photo 101. I started taking pictures of these fields, and they were terrible. There was just like gray sky, gray ground. There was nothing there. And meanwhile, I am at Kenyon, and I'm taking British Lit 101, British Lit 201, British Lit 301. I did some of my best daydreaming ever in those classes. And I was thinking, how do I capture this feeling? I bought a wide-angle lens. Again, it was just more gray. And I was reading one of those Brit Lit books, and it was something about some solitary figure running across the moors or whatever. And I don't know why, but this image popped in my head of a boy and a bicycle on one of those roads. I thought, if I get a kid with a bicycle that's very close to me, I'm interested in that space, but it would tell the story of coming a long distance. There was a little alleyway in the town near us, Mount Vernon, that was about 5-10 miles away. That was really cool. It was like this narrow alley with this cracked brick stuff. And I go, I'll go down there, and maybe some kid will come along with a bicycle or man or whatever. It was like, Matt, and I was using the type of camera, the old-fashioned where you put a view camera, 4x5, where you put the hood over your head, the old-fashioned kind.
Sure.
So I schlepped down there, and within 90 seconds, this boy with a bicycle, about 10, 11 years old.
So we're back in Westchester now.
No, we're down in Ohio.
Oh, this is in Ohio.
I'm trying to do my art thing in Ohio, trying to capture that wide open space. I photographed the boy. I said, little boy, come in. Can you lean in? You didn't know what I was talking about. And that kind of camera takes a long time for exposure, 1 second exposure. I said, just lean against this wall with your bicycle and look like you're looking distance. Meanwhile, there's a wall right in front of his face.
Okay.
He did that. I then drove out to Quarry Chapel Road out in Gambier, where Kenyon is. And I took that picture. That night, I went in the darkroom. And
what was the Quarry Chapel Road picture?
It was just a road to nowhere. Vast, a road off to nowhere, with the flagpole, the telephone poles fading off in the distance. That night, I cut out the other half. As I printed, I blocked the other half of the wall. And I have the kid leaning against the wall, and I blended the dirt of the road with the asphalt of the where the kid was standing. I got this picture I call Boy and Bike, and it was this very wide panoramic picture, but it captured that feeling of this wide open space, because the boy was in a dark, close, claustrophobic space, but meanwhile the fields opposite him were bright and went on forever. And there was a dichotomy of this energy. I know this is all kind of... I want to
see this. No, it's really super, very
I think I have it on my About page on my website. I have that. But anyway...
but it sounds a lot like your Facebook background picture, which is you on a vast, empty
out of
stretch
Montauk.
highway.
Yeah, Montauk. Picture was
Right, it makes me think of that.
I had the
great
shtick,
shot.
Norm. So
Yeah.
when I got back to New York, let's move up to the good stuff with all this background. But I had this portfolio of these panoramic images of the Ohio landscape, and I was shooting people in small spaces inside, and then in the darkroom I was make it look like you then went out to the outside. So I had someone in a claustrophobic space, and I had these wide open, gorgeous Ohio vistas.
Right.
And I had a portfolio of about 10 of these that I started bringing around to show, like, please hire me.
So the stuff you described of shooting that kid in the alleyway and then blocking out the background and stripping it in and sort of fixing up the dirt, that was all happening in the developing room, with like difficult tricks to pull off there.
Yeah,
and this is pre-Photoshop.
This is pre-Photoshop, and that whole thing ties in with the trajectory of my story, and also here's a key part of the story is that I was bringing this work around. And the prints were printed on 24-inch wide paper, and the images were usually about 5 or 6 inches tall. They were completely impractical for commercial purposes. Plus, they were black and white. And everywhere I went, people go, "Wow, like what kind of camera? How? Where is it? How did you do this?" And
so because people weren't doing that, but
people were not.
You
doing
learned
this.
it somehow. Or
I had this thing, and they were completely impractical. But I had to live. I had to make some money.
Right.
So I'll get to. Can I tell one of my stories?
Please.
My stories.
You don't have to get back to anything.
Yeah,
Just leave it all dangling.
Well, people are like, it's like all this background. But I'm bringing this portfolio around, and people are saying, no, this doesn't work. Nice to meet you. Stay in touch. Don't stay in touch. Whatever. I had shown the work to a guy named Tom Bodkin, who was the creative director at the New York Times. And Tom was very nice, and he was sort of intrigued by it, and he set me up with a go-see with the almighty and powerful editor of the Sunday Times Magazine.
Oh, wow.
So this is in the mid-'80s or so. And I have to say before I go in, I'm not proud of the first half of this story at all because I was a real jerk, but it's okay. It worked out well. The way I was making a living was I was a freelance assistant. Back in those days, every commercial photographer, they were shooting Hasselblads and Mamiya 6x7 cameras, 6x9 cameras, and they needed assistance to quickly load the camera because the roll only had 10 frames on it.
Okay, so let me just paint this picture.
Okay.
I think I know. And the assistant had their hands inside a bag, a dark bag.
No. You
rolling
didn't have to
the film.
For that kind of film, it was a 120 film, and you could load it. But you load it in light. The 4x5s, the large formats, had to be done in the dark. Had to be done in the dark. But every commercial photographer was going out to shoot some ad or whatever. They would have 1, 2, or 3 of me moving the lights around, loading the camera very quickly. That's how, and you got paid $75 a day. And I only was working 1 or 2 days a week, but I was living in Hoboken, and my rent was only $300 a month, and I was sharing with my buddy John, and the PATH train back in those days was only 30 cents each way,
right.
And the beers at Louis Grandevue were only 25 cents a beer. So I called it low wattage living. I could get by on that minuscule amount of money. Which has served me well, even in these years in beautiful Rhinebeck.
Good talent for an artist to have.
But getting back to Times, I got in there, and I had this portfolio of matted prints. It was ridiculous. That's not how you show your work. I go in and I see her, and you go in and you can always get a sense of whether it's going to be a good one or a bad one. And I went in there, and maybe I caught her at a bad time where she was put out that Tom had made me see her. I put this ridiculously large portfolio on her table, and she opens it up. She's like, looking at me like, what is this? And she opens it up, and it's my 12 or 15 panoramic photos on museum board, and she's going through them, and I can tell she's not like, what is this stuff? She's not impressed. And she gets through it, and I felt I had to say something. I said, there are several pictures I put together in the darkroom, but they're seamless. And she goes, but they're black and white. And I've been hearing this for years. And then the moment came that this is the part of the story I'm not proud of, where I said, in my wise-ass way, you know, it's funny. If you put color film in the camera, the pictures come out color.
Oh, a little bit of snark.
Beat 1, 2, 3. She looks at me. Who the hell do you think you're speaking to? Get the hell out of my office right now. And I realized that maybe I had pushed it just a step too far. So I'm quickly backpedaling. Maybe that came out a little too direct. And I'm, well, it was nice meeting you. You know, may I leave a card? And, you know, get out of here. You get out of here.
Wow.
So I pack up my big, heavy portfolio, and I'm walking out. And I kept my cool enough that I did drop off one of my promo cards, which had the boy and bike picture on it, John Halpern photographer, with my phone number, my answering service. And I got out of Dodge, and I had to face Tom the next day. He goes, what the hell were you thinking?
Wait, because he got a call?
He heard about it. My charm had spread through the gray lady rapidly. So, but there is an upside to this story. A couple months later, I get a call from someone at the Times, and she was going to be a guest editor. This woman calls and she goes, you know, I saw this promo card of yours, and it was this panoramic.
God,
I'm going to be substituting because everybody's on vacation for the Labor Day issue, and I want to do something. We've never run any photographs on the editorial page of the New York Times. It's always been illustrations or cartoons, whatever, you know, political little knickknacks. I've gotten this beautiful story that we're going to run on Labor Day about the closing of the Homestead Steel Mill in Pittsburgh. I want to fly you out there and you do one of those kind of melancholy looking images.
Gorgeous.
I'm like, well, sure, thank you. You're going to pay for the flight? So I go out there, I pack up my 4x5 camera with the hood that you put over the head. You know, I was so unprepared for this. I'd always done my artwork, but now there's a deadline on this, and it has to fit this size, at this shape, and it has to have the steel mill. Remember, it's about the closing of the steel mill. So I take a cab out to Homestead, which is just outside Pittsburgh proper, and there's this big hulking dead building of the Homestead Steel Mill, which I think was built in the 1800s, originally by Carnegie. You know, that was it. And they were closing it, and the town around it was going to die. And he had written this, the author had written this beautiful story from Labor Day of like what's going to become of our country as these blue, you know, like here we are all these years. This is 1980, September 88. Anyway, I was like, I felt it, but I didn't know how to photograph it because all my other pictures, you know, it's on my own time. If it doesn't work, you try again. But I had a deadline. Anyway, I photographed the building, and I also photographed from a bridge that kind of ran above it to the side, the little tiny town below this hulking, you know, empty fortress.
Nice.
And that night, I went into a dark room and I put together this image. And it ran on the Times. It was kind of, I think it's the first picture that ever ran in the New York Times on that page. And now, it was a different time because they didn't, now they run photographs everywhere, but that was a weird thing. And that was a good break.
Amazing, amazing thing. So did you get a lot of work out of that?
No. None of my stories. I'm going to tell all the stories tonight. None of them. That's the story that I share on my Facebook friends, my 30 friends, Facebook friends, it's like everybody with social media is talking about, well, me and Bob or Bruce, we shot on the boardwalk and everything. It was great. And we hang together in the car, afterwards drinking beers. And that's never happened to me. I'm always the guy that Annie and those guys aren't available. Maybe Halpern's around, he'll do it.
All right, tell the Jay Leno story, which leads up to the same question. Did you get a lot of work out of that?
No, but it's a good story.
Well, yeah, tell that.
Okay, here's the Jay Leno story.
Because I saw that on your Facebook. It's really amusing.
One of my early album covers was for Warner Brothers, and it was for a singer-songwriter named Jude Cole, and this is, I think, 92. And actually, it segues into another part. Jude... the songs had a melancholy thing about, he was from Illinois, and the art department at Warner in LA thought that we would be a good match. They were familiar with my work. So I go out there. It happened to be during the LA riots.
Oh boy.
So we found a place that was relatively quiet and relatively safe in a warehouse district. And I photographed Jude kind of standing there pensively and all that. And I went back to my dark room. I used the boy and bike picture, the road going back nowhere with the LA thing. And I kind of created this picture with Jude in the foreground, looking reflective and all that. And this road vet, my old shtick of the road going off to nowhere in the distance. Yeah. It was always a big moment for me when they promoted these singer-songwriters and they would go on Leno, Letterman, all that, because there's this moment where they would introduce the song and they would hold up my album package.
Oh, nice.
And somehow there's like, that moment lasted for like maybe 2 seconds, but like there it is. That's my pick. Jay Leno or Letterman. And introducing Jude Cole is going to sing his new song. I would wait up all day. This was a big deal for that moment of like, maybe I'm really a photographer, a rock photographer. So that night, Liz, my girlfriend, then girlfriend, now wife, she had a real job. She had to show up at J. Crew the next morning at 8:30. She gave me a kiss. Good luck, with your 2 seconds. She went off to bed. And I had an hour and a half to kill until the music performer is always the last to go on. So I'm waiting around. Finally, they go to commercial. They come back, and Jay Leno's there, and he's holding. And now the performer's brand new Warner Brothers release on Start the Car, and they're holding up my picture. Here is Jude Cole, clap, clap. Jude performs his song, and usually at the end of the song, they cut the commercial, and the show's over. This night, I guess he sang the song a little more quickly than they thought. Jude walks over to the desk to speak with Leno. Oh, good for him. This is going to be a good break for him. He gets the chat. So the conversation, so where are you from? And he said, I'm from Illinois. And Leno holds up my album cover, and he goes, is that where this picture was taken? And I'm in this dark, at 12:39, my little tiny apartment in the city. I'm like, I couldn't believe how the conversation had redirected itself.
So good.
And no. Jude goes, no. It was shot in L.A. and there's stuff from Ohio. This very talented photographer named John Halpern shot it and put it together. And I'm sitting in my little, and I'm like, why? I thought. And then they cut to commercial, and I thought, oh my God, I'm now, after all these years of struggle, I'm a made man. Now, this went out on the Tonight Show.
Right.
Everybody's going to be calling me up in the morning. Now, the thing was, Norm, that I had this old phone, a yellow rotary phone that sat next to my bed.
Rotary phone.
And it had followed me through various moves from Hoboken to the city, a divorce in the meantime. But it was my yellow phone. And a new phone would have cost me too much over my meager savings, so I held on to it. But the phone worked fine, except for one little thing, that it had a loose connection where it tied into the wall. And if I walked too far with the coiled receiver to my ear, it would tug the phone slightly on the old wooden desk and would cut out the conversation. The person anyway, and jobs were precious few back then. So what I had done was gaffer tape is a very strong black tape that we photographers and filmmakers use. It was my grandfather's old wooden desk, but I had taped it to Grandpa's old desk with layers and layers of black tape, so God forbid the damn yellow phone would have moved a quarter inch and cut me out.
Yeah.
I knew that all the phone calls, because of my Tonight Show exposure extravaganza, people are going to be calling. Hi, is this John Halpern, the photographer whose work was discussed last night so earnestly on the Tonight Show? I knew those calls were going to be coming in starting at 8 o'clock. So I went into my work closet where I had my cameras. I got out a roll of tape, and Liz is sound asleep on the bed. And I tiptoe in there, and I'm stretching out fresh new 10-inch strips of gaffer tape, because to make sure that damn phone, when the phone calls started coming the next morning, the phone wasn't going to cut out on. Next morning, I set my clock for like 6 in the morning because I was going to be showered and ready to go and pounce on those calls. Long story short, no calls came in that week at all. Not for the next week, nothing came in, and I'd run into friends on the street. Guess what they were talking about? I tell them the story where they mentioned my name and they're holding up my picture, and people are like, "Oh, good for you," and they kind of like silently walk away.
But these are the things that artists dream of. Your work in the Times, your work, highlighted and discussed, and your name mentioned on late night TV.
It was happening,
and artists dream of that, thinking, as you did, the phone's going to be ringing off the hook.
But it doesn't. But you do somehow, by working each job, eyes are seeing it,
right?
And it leads to, if I could segue to my next big break, that the head of the world's largest record company, Warner Bros. Records, Jerry Hayden, somehow seemed familiar with my name. And then I did Jude Cole was her project, and then she called me up about a year later, and the thing about Jerry was, and she's still out there, she runs a design firm called Smog Design with her husband John. She has this very California way of speaking, like la-di-da. She calls me up one day. She goes, "Hi, John, it's Jerry. I know you're busy. I know you're doing a shoot for us in Nashville next week, but I don't know, can you fit it in? But do you have time to do a new Van Halen package for us?" And I'm wetting my pants, and I go, "Oh, that sounds interesting. Tell me more." Well, it's going to be a live shoot because they're going to film something in Fresno. It's going to be a new DVD, and I thought you'd be great at this. And I love it. Can you fit in before the job in Nashville? Sure, Jay, I'll try to fit in the new Van Halen.
All right, listen, I want to hear more about this, but we need to take a commercial break.
Sure.
In this case, the commercial is the cocktail.
The cocktail.
You brought some cocktail.
Yeah. And I think after all these long-winded stories, the listening audience
so amazing.
They need to run to the restroom themselves or find another station.
So you brought some special.
Yeah.
I see some of your readings here.
Okay, I am not really a cocktail drinker. Liz and I are wine drinkers. A Chenin Blanc from South Africa or a Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand. That will wet our whistles. But I did bring a Campari drink because it ties in. I always have a story with everything. So my father, the World War.
Do you like always have a story with everything?
Everything is a story. The thing is, I'm not one of those photographers that wakes up each morning like, I want to go out and take pictures.
Right, so how does Liz do with that you have a story for everything?
Liz will have a lot to say with it. Probably most of it I don't want to hear.
Cut to the chase, get the point. I just want a short answer.
So I got to start making this drink.
Make the drink.
Okay, I'm going to tell a story about my pop. Oh, this is I'm not drinking now because I want to be able to think coherently. I'm throwing in water, which is a mess.
Pour that out of the side of the pitcher.
Do you guys? Are you okay if I use my hands?
Yeah, sure.
Grab the ice. So
Yeah.
my dad. Oh, thank you.
Thanks,
They
Tom.
actually have. It's the only radio studio in the world that has something to grab the ice. John, don't you use your hands. My dad was an 18-year-old Jewish kid in Flatbush, Brooklyn. When he turned 18, a couple days later, he got his draft. He got drafted to the U.S. Army in 1944. And he got shipped off to a training camp, boot camp down in Mississippi. And he went through how number of weeks they taught you to survive down there. And the camp, when he got there, was teeming. And I'm sorry, I got him. This is a Campari drink with sweet vermouth.
Oh, good.
So
And
it's a one-to-one mixture.
Campari and sweet vermouth.
This is Campari and sweet vermouth. You can make a Campari and soda, but I thought all the other previous very serious drinks on this show that have come
So it's
along.
like Negroni without
it's like
the gin.
without the Negroni. And I have some prosecco, which I'll dump in.
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
Can we hook Matt up with
this is Matt's. This is Matt's.
Oh, you're not going to share.
I'm going to
imbibe.
I'm going to enjoy you watching you guys. We got to put in the orange slice here. Okay.
All right. Well, cheers. You're drinking water. I never bought into it's bad luck to toast with water thought.
Okay.
So cheers.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, John.
Oh, thank you. But I'll try to move this story along. Dad, the camp in Mississippi is now empty. And there's all these guys like, I want to get out there and shoot me some krauts. And Dad's going, no, it's fine. I'm in no rush. Finally, a sergeant comes out and he goes, you guys are the luckiest SOBs in the whole U.S. Army. You're never going to see a shot fired in anger or your entire stay over there. And the Southern guy's like, what the hell is this? You're going to be a permanent KP, kitchen patrol. So they shipped Dad off over to London. And he ended up being on the wait staff for General Omar Bradley, the soldier's general. And for this 18-year-old kid, World War II was the time of his life.
Wow.
Because he was in with this beloved general, Eisenhower, Patton, the Russian generals are passing through to confer with him. He was the head of command of the U.S. Army after D-Day. They go across, and as they went through Europe, they would stay in the various hotels that the Allies had conquered. And I was photo assisting a fashion group. We were shooting St. John knitwear, and we had a gig. I told Dad, we're going to Lucerne. He goes, oh, I stayed in Lucerne in the Hotel National. You know, if you ever go to that hotel, there's this beautiful little bar there called the Rose Bar. I want you to go in there and drink a Campari and soda for me. So when I finally made it there, sure enough, this little nook, almost like this room, this little nook in the Epicurean, was the Rose Bar was there, and I had a Campari and soda in my dad's honor. So that's what we're drinking tonight in my dad's honor. Dad, I love you.
So sweet.
So anyway, we're having Campari and soda. I'm going to have, if you don't mind, I'm going to have Campari and soda so I can keep talking relatively
I don't mind.
coherently.
So your dad never got back there?
He never got that back, but he was thrilled that I was going to make it back there.
That's such an interesting thing that he would get so much satisfaction from his kid going and doing this thing that he clearly would have liked to have done. All right, well, listen, back to Van Halen.
Back to Van Halen.
I interrupted that because I was thirsty.
Okay,
now
good.
we got the drink, so I want to hear the rest of the Van
Jerry
Halen
called
story.
me, do you have time to fit a Van Halen package? Yeah. The thing was, she said it was going to be a live package. I had never shot a live concert. It's a specialty in and upon itself. I didn't know, but I wasn't sure as hell wasn't going to share that with Jerry as she's offering me a Van Halen package. So So
you figured how hard can it be?
How hard can it be?
Right.
As I'm like, I'm quizzing every photographer I know, like, how do you do it? What kind of lens? What kind of film do you use? Is it? Anyway, I fly out to Fresno, and I drive up to their, Madison Square Garden type venue. The afternoon of it's going to be over 2 nights. I get in the door, I go inside, and the roadies are setting up the stage, and it's exciting. It's freaking Van Halen. It's 1992. They're at near the peak of their house, and no, it was Sammy as the singer at that point. That's the only thing. It was, but Sammy's good.
Pretty good, yeah.
So anyway, I get in there, and I'm meeting people. They introduced me. It was being filmed by a team out of L.A., and I meet the Hollywood film director. And he's like this guy. And he comes up to me in this overly earnest way. I go, hi, I'm John, the photographer. He goes, love your work. And I'm thinking, I don't have any work. I've never done this before. But and we, I'm blowing kisses at each other. This is going to be great. And da-da-da-da. And you're the only photographer allowed in here tonight, and I'm thinking, shit, it's sink or swim, but so then the show begins. I'm up at the stage, and I should add, I'm a little bit hard of hearing. It was from those 2 nights because they did give me earplugs. It was freaking loud, and all of a sudden this extravaganza literally erupts in front of my eyes. I'm 5 feet away from them. The cameras from the film team are like flying back and forth. I'm ducking as they're coming. If you watch the video, you could see me. I'm ducking left and right.
So
I didn't want to get in the way. And my light meter is doing this mambo dance up and down. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And the thing was, the way I was trained is you shot with slide film, which was processed in E6. Slide film has an incredibly short latitude. It's either on exposure or overexposure or underexposure, and there's very little latitude. I'm just like holding my finger on motor drive through the 36 frames. I went through that first night 36 rolls of film. I had never shot that much before, just praying that 1 or 2 pictures are in focus, are in the right exposure. Because I didn't know what I was doing. And so I'm like, I go back and I just collapse that night. And I have another night ahead of me, the second night of shooting. And I get back to the venue a couple hours before, and this roadie tracks me down. He goes, the film director wants to talk to you. And I go, oh, sure. So I find him back in, the car. They have all the cars parked outside the vans, and he has his microphone, and they're reviewing the footage and all that. And he turns to me and goes, hey, during the second song, Pound Cake, I want you to go up on stage with the band and get some real close shots of the band on stage with them.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, except I almost asked in my pants right there. Like, I was now I'd be like, great, I'd be blowing kisses to the crowd, but at that, there's going to be 50. I said to him, there's going to be 15,000 people, like this dork on stage with a camera. Like, what's he doing there? I was going to be right up there with them.
Amazing.
And I said, does the band know about this? And they go, oh yeah, they're cool. They're cool with it. So I'm like, I was dreading this because I didn't I'm going to be up there, John in my sneakers and T-shirt, and I'm going to be watering. Like, I'm not a cool guy. I look like an insurance salesman with like brand new cons
you're holding
on.
the camera up on stage,
Yeah,
at Halen concert.
Not in my mind.
Like half the audience is like, I want to be that guy.
So anyway, I'm in the front row, and then all of a sudden another roadie grabs me at the end of that song. He kind of yanks me. I'm going, I don't want to go. I don't think this is a good idea. I'm saying to him, I don't think this is a good idea. I'm getting great shots up front of you. And they pull me to the side of the stage, and then the first beats of Pound Cake start, and they literally push me on stage. And I think I stumbled the first couple of steps, and I'm yelling, this is not a good idea. This is not.
Really?
And they're going, get out there, get out there. And I turn my back, I take a deep breath, I stumble on the stage, and Eddie's like right in my face. And behind me from the wings, they go, I hear this voice, don't trip Eddie.
Don't trip Eddie.
I was kneeling down at his feet, and he's running around, and the explosions from the lights are going off, and you can't see anything when you're up there, and the smoke machines are going off. And I'm just shooting away like a banshee, and I got off that stage so fast. And it was because
you stayed on for the duration of the song?
For the song. I got the song, and I was running up to the drums. And I'm sure everybody in the theater was like, and the arena was like, who the hell is that guy?
No.
Where's security? So I got back, and a lot of the pictures came out really well. Yeah, it just happened because there's lights and magic and smoke, and Eddie's in my face, and I have all these amazing pictures because I was at his feet. I shot with a 20 millimeter really wide angle lens, and I have these shots that are positioned right at his shoes, but it goes up to Eddie.
What kind of shoes?
Oh, they were like some kind of custom-made tie-top Converse.
Right, that's hilarious.
Red ones. So it was
custom-made.
But it was during the period when Eddie was kind of messed up. He was supposedly clean, though. I smelled the cup a couple times, his drink cup. He was not. It wasn't soda water in there.
He seemed always to me. He seemed like such a likable guy.
Really, they were all so nice. At the end of the show, it was an amazing. I was so pumped. It was just a high, and they went off. They did their encores. And then all of a sudden, like 5 minutes later, Sammy Hagar comes on. And he goes, "Hey guys. We had a effing great time with you guys. I just want you guys, take it easy. I want you to get home safe. You mean everything to us. We love you." It was like Dad coming out on the stage. It was real.
Sammy, I can't drive 55.
Hagar. Exactly. It was really great. But the thing was, I had a gig the next morning in Nashville. So I had to drive. I'm all pumped up from this thing, and the whole time thinking, I hope a picture comes out. And I went until I got to New York, I didn't know.
So what did you do? So the film hadn't been developed until you got back to
New
York.
No. You put it into a lead bag, and this was...
You didn't put it through the X-ray machine.
Well, it was this whole thing, always, from my assistant training from flying around, it's the golden bag that you put your foot down. It cannot go through X-ray because you can fog it. And they used to sell these lead bags that were foldable that you would protect it. And most of the security people, this was before the current issues, were kind of cool with it. They could see it, and they would dump. Wow, that's a lot of film. What the hell are you doing? You have like all
like 70 or 80 rolls.
Absolutely. And when I was assisting, I used to go on these. When I was assisting, there were photographers who shot the cigarette ad campaigns, and we would have hundreds and hundreds of rolls of Kodachrome there.
Cigarette ad. So much money.
Oh, it was so much money. And we used to have the assistant, I was in with this group that were all the assistants in New York. We all knew each other. And we played this parlor game as we're drinking a beer. If you were offered a cigarette campaign, would you do it? If you were offered a liquor campaign, would you do it? Because the reason was that they were the two by far the highest paying gigs. I know,
but also sort of like did a lot of damage.
Yeah, like you're talking about blood money, but they were getting paid over $10,000 a day. These shoots would be 3 weeks because you do a couple days of white people.
Nutty good money.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Well, so in this hypothetical game, would you shoot that? Would you shoot this?
I'm a man of great dignity.
You are. Well, this is a good segue into all the corporate CEO
here we go. Boy, mud is coming on my face.
Yeah, pharmaceutical company.
Here we go.
So
they're saving. I got my booster the other day, Norman. They're saving her ass. But anyway.
But that's a whole other part of your work.
The interesting thing was that most of us, we said, no, we wouldn't do cigarettes.
Right.
But yes to liquor, which is kind of an interesting thing when you think about it.
It's easier to sort of understand the immediate sort of physical.
Right. But that was, now I probably wouldn't do either. Yes.
Right. But back to the pharmaceutical
now here we go.
You'd get a gig to do that, and you'd be like, okay, these fucking guys are charging $1 million for insulin for people who need it. I'm sorry. I don't mean to hold your feet to the fire.
How am I going to answer this? There's no good way.
Well, I guess the answer I expected was, you're making a living as an artist. You take what you can,
I'll just say this. The way I got into I have shot for a lot of pharmaceutical companies. There was an art director who used to work at one of the record companies when they started disbanding in the early 2000s. These guys had to get work, and I got in with a trade magazine called Pharmaceutical Executive Magazine, and they always had a picture of some executive with his arms folded across his chest in front of the flag that said Pfizer or whatever, the building behind. And he said, "You got to loosen this up somehow. We need something cooler." So he started bringing me in to shoot some of the executives of the different pharmaceutical companies in more of a hip, environmental way, as opposed to the arms folded across the chest thing.
Photos. When I look at your photos, the corporate photos especially, everybody seems so nice. The people are smiling,
right?
And and it's not all CEOs, lots of entrepreneurs and stuff, people who've done amazing things, and you see pictures of them a lot, and they have this sort of sneery attitude, like I'm a master of the universe and you are not. And your photos of them, they're all very likable. Can
you be my agent? Thank you.
Well, I mean, I assume that's by design.
That is very much. It's just how I am. I go into these gigs. These days, the budgets have gotten really small. I can't afford to bring in an assistant. It's just me, my camera, and some little light.
Right.
And I just I've gotten really good at I size up the room in about 3 minutes. Okay, we shoot here, there, and there. And then, nice to meet you. And what's made a big difference versus my early days with the rock and roll stuff? Google. I know everything about these people. I know what their hobbies are.
Right.
And I've seen previous pictures of them. I look at Google satellite maps. I know which way the direction is going to be in that building at 2:30 p.m.
Right. Nice.
Whereas when I went to go shoot the Eagles, I had no idea that Glenn Frey absolutely hated Don Felder. I had no idea. And I go, here, put your arms around each other. Because you're just going, that's how things have changed. Now I can do research and I know what's going on.
Well, I'm not going to bring up all the shit that I learned about you on Google, but I do. I'd love to hear about the Eagles. What the hell? Shooting the Eagles?
Oh, those guys.
Yeah.
Okay, how many minutes do we have?
We're going to go over a little bit. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I begged Matt, could we please go over, because I'm sure there's an extra 90 seconds of entertainment to be had.
The Eagles, how do I sum this up quickly?
Well, you don't.
Here's my Eagles story. I'll try to move it along. It's Friday night in 1994. I'm on the phone, my girlfriend Liz, making plans for that night. I get call waiting on the yellow rotary phone that I can't move. And I'm speaking to call waiting. I click over, and it's Jerry Hayden, like the goddess of Hollywood, calling. He goes, "Hi, John. How you doing? I'm sorry I'm calling you a little late today, But, hey, I was speaking to Don Henley today, and I don't know if you know this, but the Eagles, the band, the Eagles, they're getting back together again. And he was looking for a photographer, and I mentioned you." I said, "Oh, Jerry, please tell me more."
Yeah. Thanks, Jerry.
She goes, "Well, Gabrielle Romberger, who was this major L.A. Art director, is handling it, and I think she's having a little bit of a hard time with Don, but you speak to Gabby, and it'll be fine." I had never met Gabby, but I then called Gabby right afterward. Oh, by the way, I clicked back to Liz, and all she remembers from that was like, "Eagles, 14 years, I'm shooting the next album of it." And I hung up on her because I had to get back to Gabrielle Romberg. I called Gabby in L.A., who I'd never met, and I get this very major, and she's like, her voice is quivering. She goes, "Oh, John, I'm so glad you called. Don has been so difficult. I think it's a guy-girl thing, and he really likes your work. And I'm so glad. How soon can you get out here, John? And I'm thinking, like, I could get out there anytime. So I flew out like 2 days later.
That's right. Send me a first-class ticket.
It wasn't first class. I got this contract in the mail the next day, arrived by FedEx. And it was ridiculous. The thing was like 60 pages long.
Oh, God.
From, the legendary, their agent, their manager. Anyway, from him, Irving Azoff. And I think some key things jumped out at me at this 30-page thing. That, first of all, I'm breaking the contract right now even talking about this, because that was in there. The second thing was that I was to name my firstborn son Eagle. And the third thing, which is key to the story, is that as soon as I shot the film and got it processed, I was to hand all the film off to their representatives. That I was like, and I'm like, whatever. I fly out there.
So they owned all the film.
And they had it physically.
Like
it's not digital.
A work for hire.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, well, it's the Eagles. Who's any photographer in the world would have killed for this assignment. So I fly out to L.A. I get my mid-size rental upgrade from National Rental Car. I'm driving. I turn on K-Rock. And I'm telling you, this is the God's honest truth. I'm driving up Halen.
What year is this?
This is April of 94.
Okay.
This just in, the Eagles are getting back together again. 5 shows Rose Bowl. And he drops like, Take It Easy on the song plays, and I'm driving up listening to this. They get back. This just in, the 5 shows have sold out, but they've added 2 extra shows. And I'm getting closer to Culver City, where they were evidently rehearsing, I was told, in an airplane hangar in Culver City, like a sound stage. I get up there. I meet Gabrielle Romberger, who's like, gives me this bear hug. Oh, thank God you're here. And I walk into this airplane hangar, and there's these 4 really old guys sitting on folded metal chairs in the middle of this airplane hangar, and they're singing in perfect harmony, Take It to the Limit. And it's like, and I turn to Gabrielle, I go, who the F are these guys? Because it had been 14 years,
right,
and they were now middle-aged men. He goes, well, that's Don Henley, that's Joe Walsh, that's Timothy B. Schmidt, that's Glenn Fry. And I'm like, oh, my God. And all of a sudden, they stop.
They sound just like the Eagles.
They sound like the radio. And I'm staying off the side, and all of a sudden, they stop playing, and Glenn Fry goes, who's that? And it was almost like that moment.
Oh my God, that's a bad dream moment.
It was like the Wizard of Oz, where the great and mighty eyes step forward, Yeah. And I kind of shuffled. I took a couple. I'm John Halpern, the photographer.
Right. And the meek
and Fry put that. Oh, it's John. How you doing? I didn't know it was you. Come on. And he comes up, and I go, okay, this is gonna be fine.
But let's savor that moment for a second. that moment where, Oz is like, who the fuck are you? And then you're like, oh, it's John Halpern. They're like, oh, my God, we love you.
He came up to me, and he scanned me up and down.
Right.
And as always with these moments, again, I look like an insurance salesman. I'm a very straight-laced, clean-cut guy, and I had always bought brand new white Jack Purcells for each shoot before I went out to L.A.
No.
I was Geek Squad all the way. They acted as my second set of reflectors.
Sounds super hip now.
Oh, yeah, not then. And they were always, and Fry came up to me, he goes, you're John Halpern? I like the
no.
Yeah, he goes, but I do love those shoes. So, I'm nice to meet you. Anyway, from back at the 50-yard line, all of a sudden, Henley gets up. Henley had let it be known that he wanted nothing to have about this photography stuff. They hadn't played together in 14 years. He's a control freak. All my friends in New York, when I told them I was shooting, they go, oh, my God, John, you're going out to the desert with Henley? Give me a call when you get back. This is going to be unbelievable. And he had this... Gabby was simultaneously working on a farewell concert for Barbra Streisand, so you know that she had dealt with people who had control issues.
Right.
Henley comes up to me. I didn't realize Henley's a big guy. I'm 6'5". He looked me straight in the eye. He kind of looks me up and down to the shiny shoes. And he turns to Gabby. He goes, I'm not going outside. And Gabby looks at me and goes, he's not going outside. And I look at Gabby. And Henley's standing right there. Okay, we won't go outside. We'll shoot in here. And I'm looking around like, oh, this isn't good. You know, we do realize that we just sold out 8 Rose Bowl things, and they're going to want something other than a dark room pictures.
Right.
So anyway, he goes, and I'm not shooting tomorrow. And then I go, when can we shoot? Monday. And she looks at Monday. I go, Monday. We'll shoot on Monday. And so anyway, this went on. I did get them outside, but I knew who
saw that picture.
Yeah, I knew who the good cop and bad cop was. Fry was my good cop, and he would then talk to Henley, who got him outside. And I took, again, I had a Pentax 6.7 and it shoots 10 frames only. They're going outside, and I did have him load me up a roll of black and white fast. And he got.
So you're working with an assistant?
Yeah, I did. Thank God. On that gig, I sprung the $125 to get an assistant for the Eagles package.
Amazing.
So I want to. One funny thing about this story is that why did I get this job? And the story I've gotten over, it's finally come together, was that they were going to work with this great photographer, an A-list guy who was the U2 photographer.
Who's that?
I'm blanking out on my name.
I probably wouldn't recognize anyone.
I forget names like this under pressure like this, but an A-list guy who wanted $30,000 a day to shoot, and Henley flipped out at that. And he called Jerry Hyden, who he knew, and evidently the conversation was, find me the best B photographer you could get.
The best B photographer.
And that was Johnny. I loaded up my camera and I hired an assistant, got my mid-size Cutlass Sierra, and I headed out to shoot the
mid-sized what?
Whatever it was. It was on special.
A B photographer.
I am a B photographer.
Which brings me to a question I'd planned ahead of time. Did you ever shoot any porn?
You know, that's always my joke, that this year I'm breaking the porn so I can make some money. No, I never did. I never did cigarettes or porn, but 2022 might be that year.
Booze and pharmaceuticals. Sign me up. John Valley of the Dolls Halpern. All right, I've got other questions. Ian Hunter. You freaking shot Ian Hunter, but you shot him like 20, 15 years later.
No, I didn't. I mowed his lawn.
Yes.
As a high school kid.
So when you first met him.
That's when I first met him. I'm walking down the hallways on the way to art class.
Love this story.
And my buddy Rob goes, hey, you free this weekend? Can you cover me on a lawn mowing job? I go, sure.
And this is in Chappaqua.
This is in Chappaqua.
Okay.
I hate saying that because it has certain connotations. Back then, Chappaqua was not Chappaqua. It was the outer burbs. But but anyway, that's where I live. So
it's a lovely place.
It is a lovely place. They don't allow, when I get to the Golden Gates in my '99 Honda Civic, they
turn you away.
They run the Geiger counter underneath the car. I don't think you belong
should be
here.
In Mount Kisco.
Yeah, exactly that way down Route 120. He goes, yeah. What house? And I said, who's the person? I don't know, it's some rock star. And
it's your friend who usually cut his grass.
Yeah, he cut his grass. And he goes, now Rob was into jazz. And, he turned his nose at this rock and roll stuff. And I was an absolutely clueless kid who threw pots and once in a while practiced my layups. I didn't know anything about anybody as far as rock bands. I think I'd heard of the Stones. So, wow, rock star. Hey, I go there, I get the lawn. He told me there was a push lawnmower. I start pushing around, but there's no one at the house.
Not even motorized?
Not even motorized. Just push back and forth. For an hour, I'm pushing this thing. It was a big lawn. I'm going back and forth. And about 50 minutes in, as I'm getting near the end, all of a sudden, this little MG Spitfire pulls up. And out stands up this guy with golden strawberry blonde ringlets.
Robert Plant hair.
Exactly, with the chains and all this, and he has dark shades. And Rob had mentioned, he goes, it's weird, the guy always wears dark sunglasses. I think there's something effed up with his eyes or something. He must be blind. Maybe he's blind, but he's cool. He's a rock star. So... And he got out of the car, and he's like, wow, he's wearing the sunglasses. And he goes in the house, he waves me. About 2 minutes later, he comes out with a beer in his hand, and he goes, hey, lad, how's it going? And he offers...
lad.
He offered... I'm 16 years old. He offers me a Michelob. And
which at that point in time was like fancy.
It had the gold wrap on it.
Yeah.
So... I take a swig, and there's this awkward silence. And I'm thinking, who are you anyway? What band? But he goes, finish up when you knock on the door. So I finish up, I knock on the door. He comes out with this, and behind him is this poster that says Mott the Hoople. And I go, I've heard of that. And there's a picture of him on the poster, and next to it is what looks like a gold record. And I put two and two together over the years. That was Ian Hunter of Mott the Hoople. And I had told this story to one of my business friends, Liz Mann, and whose husband plays with John Mellencamp as the guitarist. And Liz calls me up about 10 years, and she goes, are you free for you and Liz, can you come over for dinner? Sure. We show up at her house in Connecticut, and there's this older couple there, and me and Liz. And it's like, oh, this is a quiet party. And introductions are made.
Quite a party.
And to Mr. Ian Hunter and his wife, Trudy. And what was going on was that Liz's husband was producing Ian's current record. And I had told Liz that story, and she thought it'd be funny if I told Ian the story directly, which I did, which he laughed about, but...
Did he remember
He didn't remember, but he did remember. I think he'll forever remember the smack on the back of his head from Trudy, his wife. What the hell were you serving a beer to a 16-year-old kid? What the hell were you thinking? Anyway... We had a lovely night. Later that night, he asked me to shoot his next package, Man Over, which is actually a really cool package.
Amazing.
But he told me, I have a stalker, and we can't shoot in any area. We have to shoot it at my house or at night, under the cover of night.
Is that why he wore the sunglasses all the time?
Well, still don't know what. He has very fair eyes. I've seen them once or twice in passing, but it's his trademark.
In passing, the eyes.
He always has the dark sunglasses. That's his thing.
Ian Hunter, Mott the Hoople.
All the young dudes.
Just a great song, Bowie song, right?
Yeah,
but
once
really
bitten, twice shy.
Made famous.
He should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Made famous by Mott the Hoople.
Right, absolutely.
Right. Wow. All right. Well, thank you so much, John Halpern.
Thank you for listening. I know there's a lot of words.
Oh, my God. It's amazing. I wish we could go on forever. Maybe we'll have you back someday if you'd be so kind.
I got one or more two stories. If the listening audience is willing to join us on that, I
only got like 5 posts back on your Facebook, and I got a hunch there's a gajillion more stories.
Is this the moment? It wasn't the Tonight Show that made me. It was Norm's show. This is it. Finally,
yeah.
I don't have to turn to cigarettes, porn, or anything in 2022.
Make sure your phone is charged because the calls are going to be coming in.
And I'll tape it down.
Morning. Yeah. Well, this is Norm from Correct Me If I'm Norm here on Radio Free Rhinecliff. Thanks to the Epicurean for hosting us here in the Nook, Matt Rosenberg for creating all of this and for having me be a part of it. Thanks for coming, John.